and have this pleasure and honor to chair this workshop on a very relevant and very hot topic, I would say, on the ethics of research in the contexts that are in conflict or at war. And today we have three specialists on the topic, Iryna Malysheva, Iryna Malysheva, and Oleh Koval, who kindly agreed to share their experiences of doing the research in Ukraine, in Kosovo, and in Stans, as it was announced in the title of the workshop. And unlike the traditional workshops of that kind, I won't read out loud the bio note for every presenter, because they will introduce themselves, why their experience in relation to the context makes them, let's say, experienced enough to share this knowledge with you, and also two organizational notices. One is that we will record the workshop, so hopefully everyone is okay with that, so that it will be recorded. And in terms of the schedule, we will have each presentation followed by Q&A. So each presentation will assumably take from 20 to 25 minutes, with assumably 15 to 20 minutes of questions. We have every presentation scheduled at certain times, so I will keep an eye on the timing, and if at some point the discussion on a certain presentation gets so vivid and so lively that we have to interrupt it, please take the apologies from my side, but I will have to interrupt. And of course, you can put questions in the chat in the time of presentation, and the presenters will address the questions after they finish the presentation. So first they do the presentation, then they address the questions. And we start with Iryna's presentation on Ukraine. Please, Iryna, the floor is yours. And also, please, everyone, keep your mics muted so that we can hear the presenters as well as possible.
One moment. Sorry, screen sharing is stopped.
Can you not share your screen?
One moment. I'm trying to do this. The file closed for unknown reason.
Oh, okay.
Do you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, it works perfectly.
Okay, so good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for coming to our workshop, and thanks to ZOiS for organizing it. So we will start from Ukraine, because in Ukraine we have the most large-scale war. My name is Iryna Malysheva. I am Deputy Director of InfoSapiens Agency, which is one of the largest in Ukraine. And I have about 20 years of experience in social studies. From the start of the full-scale war, InfoSapiens have conducted more than 300 quantitative and qualitative surveys. But during last 2 years, our team faced more ethical challenges than during 18 years before. At the same time, some of ethical challenges appeared since 2014, when the Russian-Ukrainian war started, but they were not so acute as nowadays. So let's start from the challenge. The first challenge is language challenge. The share of respondents in all Ukraine surveys who selected Russian language of interview decreased from 48% in February 2022, before the invasion, to 22% in March 2022. So more than twice in 1 month. And it is constantly decreasing now. As for now, it constitutes 10% via telephone interviews and 30% via face-to-face interviews, probably because during telephone interviews, the interviewer addresses everybody in Ukrainian, and during face-to-face interviews in Russian-speaking regions, the interviewers may address respondents in Russian. And then we have a significant share of bilingual respondents who answer in the language which they are addressed to. And some people, including our clients, consider it to be unethical to conduct the surveys in Russian language and insist on the surveys in Ukrainian only, but it skews the results. Russian language is selected mostly by elders from eastern and southern regions, including 20% of IDPs. On this screen, you can see our review of InfoSapiens in Google Maps. This review was written by our respondent, who is angry that we have asked whether you would like to answer in Russian or in Ukrainian. And if you go to Google Maps and see InfoSapiens, there are a lot of such reviews. So it is rather spread position. So there can be two solutions of this situation. The first solution is nevertheless to ask the question, what language are you comfortable to respond? Because, for example, according to ESS standard, the survey has to be translated into language that apply to 5% of the population and more. And the other approach, which we invented, is to ask, is it comfortable for you to speak in Ukrainian? And if not, we turn into Russian. And within such approach, not 10%, but only 2% of the respondents have chosen Russian. And as for now, we didn't find any biases. However, we are still testing this approach, so we are not sure that it provides reliable enough data. At the same time, this approach doesn't traumatize Ukrainian-speaking respondents. The second question is the second challenge is traumatic questions on war experience. Nowadays, most surveys include traumatic questions about the experience of war, the losses, displacement, and now the Ukrainian audience is so sensitive that very many questions can be traumatic for certain kinds of the respondents. With this regard, the hardest for us was the project The Voices of Civilians, where we collected 10,000 of war experience stories of IDPs and refugees. And during some stories, the respondents could cry and the interviewers could cry. It was a very hard project. So what we have done to make this project more easy for everyone. First of all, it's like standard. It is a detailed explanation of the aim of the survey and the right of the respondent not to answer sensitive questions and to stop the survey anytime. The interviewers can say this not only in the beginning, but he or she can remind the respondent about this right. Also, it is recommended to put sensitive questions at the end of the questionnaire, if it is possible. Also, it is necessary to conduct thorough training of the interviewers on working with sensitive questions. Also, we provide the respondents the contacts of free psychological support centers. And finally, within such hard projects, we conduct psychological testing of the interviewers on a weekly basis. And if any interviewers have high stress indicators, we just replace them, but they don't lose their jobs, they just go to other projects. The second challenge is wartime terminology of international organizations, which often makes us angry because international organizations sometimes even don't allow to say war. We have to say like conflict, like more mildly. They don't allow, this is the terminology of Plan International Organization, but it is rather standard. Luckily, the Plan International allows to say war in Ukraine, but they don't allow to say occupied areas. They don't allow to say newly liberated areas. They suggest to say newly accessible areas, but there is the Ukrainians don't understand what does this mean. Also, Russian invasion, it is also forbidden, and so on. Sorry, it's something. I can't. Oh, okay. In spite of our angerness against this, from the other hand, this approach allows to include more extent, like pro-Russian or politically passive respondents, because, for example, Volodymyr Panioto thinks that about 6% of pro-Russian respondents, they just hide from the surveys. And our solution is to use in the questionnaire as maximally neutral terminology, but which is acceptable for people. The war instead of conflict, and so on. And in the reports, we use international organizations terminology, but we are not very happy that InfoSapiens name is in the reports with the word conflict instead of the war. The next challenge is the surveys which may harm Ukraine's image, according to our opinion. We consider such surveys only when we by 100% sure that the client is pro-Ukrainian, and this is a precondition for all challenges. Recently we had the survey from Stanford University about dehumanization, but you probably have seen this scale, this approach, because it is rather popular, that there is a scale from monkey to human, and we are asking, we have conducted surveys both in Russian and in Ukraine, and we ask Russians whether Ukrainians are human, and 0 indicates that Ukrainians are not human at all, and 100 scale indicates that Ukrainians are fully human. And the same approach is for Ukrainians about Russians. And when we have thought about this survey, we understood that Russians will dehumanize Ukrainians much less than Ukrainians will dehumanize Russians. First of all, because Russians were not massively bombed and killed, and also Russians still believe in the liberation of Ukraine. Also, we have very interesting results of the preliminary studies when, for example, we have asked in 2022, we have asked Russians to send a short telegram to ordinary citizens of Ukraine, not the authorities and not the military. And the frequently they have written words of support. Our team was really shocked when we have seen this. Hold on, everything will be fine. Take care of yourself. Russia has come to free you. Russians wish you well. Here you are some transcripts of these telegrams. Hold on, friends, help us to liberate your own land from fascism. We will save everyone. Do not listen to your people. Hold on to us. Do not make the enemies of Russians. Putin is good, and so on. And that kind of telegrams were written by the half of the sample, while only 3% of the telegrams indicated like true support of Ukraine, not all Russians support the operations and there are Russians on your side. So when we have considered this survey, we understood that the results will be that Russians are very human, very kind to Ukrainians, and Ukrainians are monsters who dehumanize Russians. But we decided to conduct this survey because anyway Stanford would found some agency to conduct it, and at least when we conducted it, we could control it, and the solution was to explain the client why he receives such results and how they should be interpreted. And also we asked to review the report before the publication. Also, there is a question of pro-Russian or anti-government statements. Many of our clients want to measure pro-Russian messages or moods and so on. Probably like the most pro-Russian statements which clients asked us to ask was please consider several options of Ukraine's development. What option would you choose? Ukraine lives to be independent and neutral, and Ukraine becomes a part of Russia. How can respondents now perceive this question? Also, such statements as Russian invasion of Ukraine is justified, Russian power is not worse than Ukrainian, it's not Russian, but Ukrainian army bombs eastern Ukraine. And generally now 2 or 3% of our samples of Ukrainians agree with pro-Russian statements of this kind. What are the risks to put such statements? First of all, traumatize respondents who have lost their dearest ones. They can suffer from such statements. They can cause a low response rate. Within face-to-face interviews, it creates risks for the interviewers. It is also a risk to our reputation because we always say that it's InfoSapiens who conduct this research. And also it is the risk for the work of our company because it can be blocked by security service of Ukraine if some respondent decides to complain for us. And so, first of all, we ask the clients to reformulate statements into pro-Ukrainian, or at least it's ideally two-side ones. Two-side statements, they usually do not cause some radical angriness, and also we provide explanations why we insert some like statements. Sorry. For example, the aim of the survey is to track changes in the Ukrainian society. Some questions were put during the whole independence period. They can seem to be irrelevant in the context of the full-scale war, but please inform your opinion to compare the data. Also, we can provide the forward, like some media say that it's not the same as to say, do you agree that Russian invasion is justified? But it's other approach when we have some media say that, different statements, and including pro-Russian ones. And also, if we decide to insert them, we put them in the end of the questionnaire. The surveys on occupied areas. We have the capacity to conduct the surveys in occupied areas via telephone and online. And there is a huge interest in these surveys from international organizations, but they are often willing to put political questions. At the same time, in 2024-23, the repressions in these areas became much worse than before. That's why we put the questions mainly on humanitarian situation, conditions of living, media, and refuse to put any questions which we consider to be dangerous for respondents. Or at least we can like reformulate them in pro-Russian way. So here what we have that in Ukrainians, it's better to reformulate the questions in pro-Ukrainian way, and on occupied areas to provide safety for respondents, it's better to ask in pro-Russian ways. The second, the next challenge is the surveys in Russia. Again, we have the capacity to conduct the surveys in Russia via telephone and online. Certainly, we conduct them for clients who want to help Ukraine to know our enemy. And to conduct these surveys, we have to mask and to formulate the questions in a pro-Russian way. This sometimes traumatize our team of researchers, but most of all, it traumatizes interviewers during telephone interviews who have to listen to Russians. And during the last projects, 25% of the interviewers engaged in the project quitted. So the solution is a detailed explanation of the real aim of the survey, helping Ukraine to win, not only to researchers, but also to interviewers. Again, training and psychological testing of the interviewers. And the last challenge I would like to tell you, it is participation in the conference with a Russian sociologist. In 2022, I was invited to the conference, which included sociologists from Georgia, Moldova, Kazakhstan, and Russia. From Russia, we had Levada Center. And there is no good solution for Ukrainian in such situation, because the agreement to participate causes accusations of symbolic Russian-Ukrainian friendship on the background of the war, and refusal to participate causes the absence of representation of Ukrainians on the international level. I have participated in this conference, and the presentation of Levada Center was very good, but they called me the representative of brotherly nations, which caused like a small conflict between us. I can suggest only personal solution. Each Ukrainian decide this challenge for him or for her individually. So I think that it is important to represent the voice of Ukrainian scholars in the events, even though Russian sociologists might be also invited. If Russian sociologists are the ones that publicly fully support Ukraine, do not make attempts to justify Russia's crimes, and are professionals in our area, I would consider taking part in such event. However, I will not have any joint projects or interviews with them, as such cooperation has unethical symbolic meaning in the wartime. It can be misused and misinterpreted. Thank you very much for attention. I will be glad to answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ina, for so detailed listing of all the challenges with solutions. And let's open the floor for the questions. So you can unmute yourself, but please maybe first raise your hand so we can see who is willing to ask the question. And of course, you can also put the question in the chat, type it, and then either a presenter or me will read it out loud, and the presenter can address it. And we have a question from Edita, please.
Hello, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. I have a question on the terminology, because I didn't really completely get what you suggest in working with newly liberated areas, whether you would rather suggest using neutral terminology or not. That's the question that interests me.
We in Ukraine, we don't have like standard like neutral terminology, because people will not understand it. If you know, if somebody knows this such term, I will be grateful. But as for now, we say newly liberated areas, because otherwise respondent will not understand us. But in like in reports, we write newly accessible areas.
Mm-hmm. And the next question is from Natalia, please.
Hello, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very interesting and useful. My question is about the sensitive questions that we now typically add to any survey about the traumatic experience of the respondents. Do you have any data or evidence of how many respondents like drop at this stage, like they don't want to answer these questions and quit the interviews or the survey on these questions? Is it higher than on average during the survey?
It certainly depends on the question, but usually when we ask these questions in the end of the questionnaire, about 5% of the respondents can quit, because throughout the interview they have some like trust to interviewers, and at the end, if the interview is not very long, not many respondents drop out.
Okay, thank you.
And the next question is from Kirsten, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ina, for your presentation. It was really interesting, and also thank you that it was so personal. My question is, and I really understand the problem, but you said several times you reformulate question. For the Russians, you do it to be more pro-Russians, and for the Ukrainians, you said you do it more pro-Ukrainian. And to what extent is there the chance that these reformulations have an effect on the outcome of the survey? If there is so much, and I now put it a little bit maybe provocative, if there is so much reformulation in order to please the respondent, to what extent do you really get his or her opinion? Thank you.
If it is like radical sharp questions like Russian invasions is justified or not justified, we have put both statements, and that it doesn't influence the results. 2% still have pro-Russian views, but if the questions are not so, I don't know, like drastic, radical, you are right, it can influence the results, and that's why I personally prefer semantic differential, which like statement is more closed for you. Russian invasion is justified, Russian invasion is not justified, and in that formulation the respondents don't get angry usually. We are not always reformulate, we just suggest the clients to reformulate the questions, and the clients decide what to do with this, and usually we find some compromise.
Yeah. Thank you. I see that Kirsten wrote in the chat, thanks, so meaning that she got the answer. And the next question is from Vera, please.
Hi, thank you so much for your very interesting presentation. Can you tell a bit more about the psychological testing of the interviewers that you are conducting?
The Kiev Mohyla Psychological Center provided us this test. It is an online test. It takes about, Tatiana, maybe you remember, Tatiana was also engaged in this project, about 15 minutes or so, and so it is not very hard for the interviewers, and they also understand why they have to pass this test, and they eagerly pass it because they are also interested in their results.
And I would say advantage is that they can actually do it during the project. So it's not before the project, but also to monitor during the project as well, how it affects the condition of the interviewer as a human being.
Yes, each week, usually.
So do we have other questions from the audience to Inna? We have time space for 1-2 more questions before we go to the next presentation from Oleh. If I may just put a question from myself to close this section. Inna, do you foresee any new challenges in the 2024 for for conducting the surveys, and maybe like an open question, not without probably a solution still, but with some kind of a something new that comes up?
As I have said, Ukrainian society is very traumatized and sensitive. So sometimes something very very несподіване, unexpected can traumatize people. For example, my acquaintance, she was traumatized when I said, "Hope you are doing well," because her son was mobilized. So unfortunately, I predict that different formulations can, which we don't expect to be problematic, they can cause problems, and that's why we have to, before the full-scale war, we haven't tested each questionnaire, but now we have to do it. because we cannot predict all the possible problems.
So pre-testing, piloting of the questionnaires could be one of the, so to say, mandatory steps before launching the nationwide survey, right?
Right.
Okay, if there are no immediate questions, but if you come up with such a question to Ina's presentation, listening to the next presenters, please put your question in the chat so we can address it further. And we move to the presentation from Oleh Koval. And let's see, maybe we'll find out that there are some similarities and challenges of conducting the surveys in Ukraine and according to Oleh's experience in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So Oleh, please, the floor is yours and you can share the screen.
Thank you. Okay. So, okay. I tell about border conflicts between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, two countries, two Central Asia countries. Okay, about me. I have about more than 20 years of experience in research in Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, and Central Asia. I worked for 2 years in Central Asia in 5 stans: Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. I work in mVector research company as head of research department, qualitative and quantitative researchers. Okay, let's look at the map and you can see all these 5 stans. Yeah, and the 6th beautiful country, Afghanistan, the 6th stan. These conflicts arise regularly between these 2 countries, and often clashes involve border guards and not a lot of fatalities, but sometimes it goes to the death of people who okay, let's look a little bit closer to the map, and you can see a lot of mountains. There are area named Fergana Valley, where 3 countries have territory on this valley: Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. A lot of territory of countries of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, it's a mountain area, and people have a shortage of resources. We tell about water, we tell about land, land for food or for
Agriculture.
выпаса скота.
Yeah, for the
Talking as no.
Yeah, thank you. And the second resource, it's roads or mountain roads. It's strategically asset. So in Fergana Valley, there are fertile land surrounds by the mountains. It is placed where water and land are abundant. So historically, these 3 countries competed for this land, have conflict for this resources of Fergana Valley. So it's a reason, it's because these conflicts take okay, which conflicts continued. So we have a lot of factors which drive cross-border conflicts. The first of this factor, it's Soviet Soviet Union. Sorry for my English. Наследие.
Heritage.
Heritage. Yeah. Thank you. Heritage. Stalin and Bolsheviks create a lot of enclaves in these countries. So if you look at the map, you can see in the brown area, it's Kyrgyzstan, but about 7 enclaves. You can see Vrukh, Tajik enclave, you can see Sokh and Shahimardhan, it's Uzbekistan enclaves. And the same situation, we look at Uzbekistan or Tajikistan. So purpose of this, why Bolsheviks did it, to prevent the countries from gaining independence and to provoke conflicts. While all these 3 countries were republics of Soviet Union, these conflicts also took part, but not in high intensity. The next factor which aggravating conflicts, it's dictatorship in Central Asia. You can see on the photos Emomali Rahmon, the dictator of Tajikistan, and Japarov, I don't remember the name of president of Kyrgyzstan, but now Kyrgyzstan also go to the dictatorship. So parts of the border between this country have not yet been demarcated. And this is the reason why this conflict continues. So it's a way for contraband. For example, a lot of drugs from Afghanistan to Russia go through this area. So this is the reason why the conflicts continue. And one of interesting facts, in Tajikistan, right now, part of the border is hidden. So it's, I don't know, it's funny or no, the situation, but maybe strange situation. You live in the country and you don't know what the borders of your country. But Tajiks live in this strange world, this strange situation. So specific of these conflicts. Usually it is not large conflicts. Usually it's a little bit, it's like a ship or cow wanders into the territory of other country. And offended owners start a conflict. It starts from fights, stone throwing, and conflict can stopped, but sometimes border guards involved in these conflicts. So when border guards use armor, use armored vehicles, and as a result, sometimes kill people. Maybe the largest conflicts between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan occurred in September 2022. 2022. This conflict started after Russian Minister Shoigu visit Tajikistan, Dushanbe, and after this visit, Dushanbe started this conflict. It's a large conflict which a lot of people killed. About 100 people from Kyrgyzstan and 100 from Tajikistan killed in this conflict. The parties secured each other by using tanks, rocket artillery, for example, Grads. Grads, it's a rocket system used in Russia-Ukrainian war, and in this conflict also uses rocket artillery. So after this conflict, Tajik and Kyrgyz presidents take peace, but maybe consequences of this conflict is going right now. So how border conflicts are dealt with? Over the decades, these conflicts studied with the aim of preventing them or reducing intensity of these conflicts. A lot of international donors like UNDP, GIZ, or others research these conflicts and train of local residents to reduce these conflicts. Residents of border areas trained to resolve conflict in non-violent way, to speak, to have without shooting, without any fights. But causes of these conflicts are more global. And in this situation, local residents, it's a little bit reduce the intensity, but conflicts continue. Okay, and when we speak about challenges, sorry. So first challenge is political sensitive questions and anti-government statement. There are no many ethical challenges because of censorship, because of dictators. All the political questioners face the censorship of the authorities in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. In Tajikistan, it's dictators more strongest, and researchers have less possibilities to research conflicts. The anti-government statements or statements which reflect the position of neighboring country, deleted. In Tajikistan, it's forbidden to ask about attitudes to US or NATO. If you are able to answer political sensitive questions, its censorship can be weaker or stronger depending on political situation. So the next solutions. First of all, not to conduct the surveys about neighboring countries immediately after conflicts. Maybe minimum 6 months or 1 year or maybe 2 years should pass after conflicts because it's maybe dangerous. For interiors, it's maybe dangerous to people who work on this project. The second one, the detailed explanation of the aim of the survey, right of the respondent not to answer. It's a normal, typical suggestion for any international research or research in Ukraine. So it works in Central Asia also. Next one, maximally neutral or even indirect formulation. This situation is typical for Central Asia culture. neutral formulation, indirect speaking. It's typical style in these countries. So respondents don't tell about interest in hatred directly. For example, Osh massacre in 210, which killed a lot of people. So Kyrgyz people tell external influence. It's not our people. It's like it's not other powers. It's not Kyrgyz people. It's so the next one. It's putting a sensitive question at the end of the question and training on the interviewers on working with sensitive questions. Maybe in each situation, it take individual approach to each research. It depends on aim of research. It depends on formulation in question. So the next challenge is participation of the joint events. Typically, there are difference between science people and like ordinary people. So people and science or research joint events, it's okay. It's Kyrgyz and Tajik people speaking, but sometimes, okay, more often researchers work separately with each side of conflicts. Separately work with Kyrgyz people, separately work with Tajik people. And at the same time, it is not recommended to touch political and conflict topics in conference, for example. Or it's necessary to use maximally neutral formulations. Yeah, it's a sad situation, but neither Kyrgyz and Tajik do not take the side of the neighboring country. So this is end of my presentation, and maybe you have questions about conflicts between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Yes, thank you, Oleh. And we can open the floor for the questions. So please raise up your hand if you would like to put a question with regard to Oleh's presentation and the challenges of conducting the surveys, doing social research in these countries of Central Asia. I myself am not so much familiar with the context, not to the extent as Oleh. So we have this benefit of having him as the person who has experience of this context. And we also see in the chat the emails of Ina and Oleh. So if you would like to contact them directly, you can do that by email. And we have the question from Beata, please.
Hi, I'm Central Asia specialist, and so I know a lot about the mentioned conflict. And because of that, I would like to hear more about your concrete measures, how you managed to make interviews, for example, on both sides. Did you manage to make interviews on both sides of the border? And with Tajiks and Kyrgyz, because I know a lot of people who tried to do it, but they couldn't. And so it would be very interesting for me how you managed this and what your specific problems in that case were, because that border research always has a lot of problems, is clear, but in this concrete case, it was nearly a war between both countries, would be very interesting for me. Thank you.
Okay, but, we work separately on Kyrgyzstan research and separately Tajikistan research. I don't took part in the complex research, which is use all countries. We work separately.
Maybe I can just clarify the question
Okay.
from Beata. It's for my understanding as well. Beata, do you mean that a certain, from your experience, from what you know about this context, if the research is conducted in both countries and the research team is introduced as the team from one country, it can be the challenge of getting interviews in the other country. Did I got it correctly or not?
Yeah, of course, but I guess I got the answer because Oleh mentioned that they were two different teams. And all approaches I know, it's one team trying to go on to conduct interviews on both sides of the border, and that's not possible. But I guess it's the approach that one team is going on both sides has a sense because the team has an understanding of both sides, and when two totally different teams are working on it, I guess it has an impact on the result of the interpretation of the results and the type of asking and so on. So I have my doubts, to be honest.
Which solution can be more efficient, right? Oleh, would you like to add anything to the answer, or we move to the other question, to the next question? And we have a question from Vera, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I was very curious to hear your presentation, as I am from the Central Asian region originally, and I was wondering, because I mean the context of Central Asia and specifically the two countries that you were covering is quite specific, because this is not only the conflict context, right, but also the context of the political regime in question. So the double difficulty of conducting this research of the kind. And I was wondering what measures you were taking in your project, in your surveys, in order to mitigate the risks for the participants who were respondents in your surveys on both sides of the border.
Okay, sorry for my English. Maybe it's better if I write down answers for questions. But
and we have the question from the chat from Olena. She wonders if Tajiks or Kyrgyz tried to explain what is the better way to talk about sensitive contact, or you didn't meet them in person. So I suggest that if you can address this question now, the question from Vera can go in the chat in the written form. Is it okay? Or so the question from Olena is whether any Tajiks or Kyrgyz, I would say, experts, no, or maybe with the piloting or pre-testing of the tool, whether they were involved and they explained maybe as first respondents how to address sensitive questions. So some experts, some researchers from local context also suggested their ways on addressing sensitive questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We have interviewers, for example, our headquarters in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. So our interviewers, it's Kyrgyz people. The people who work on the Patken or Osh city. So yes, it's all time. It's conversation between people from the Patken area, for example, and okay, we don't ask about this question. Please reformulate it. Yes, absolutely. It's
So,
local team, local Kyrgyz team and local Tajik team. And Vector company has office in Kyrgyzstan, in Tajikistan, and now in Kazakhstan. Yes, and all the questionnaires fulfilled by Kyrgyz or Tajik interviewers. And
the question from Vera, you would like to answer it in the chat. Did I got it correctly? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other immediate questions to Oleh? Yes. Okay. I guess we can move to Iryna's presentation about conducting research surveys in Kosovo, considering also the war there in 90s, and the difference with Ukrainian context is that many more years passed since that time, but there are also similarities, as we see with the presentations from Inna and Oleh. There are similarities in how to, for example, address the sensitive questions, how to talk to people from different contexts with different perceptions, and how to get the answers, how to make the survey done. And so we see Iryna's slides. Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for introduction. Still, I don't know, good morning, good afternoon, good day for everyone. And thanks to organizers for inviting me to share my experience. But before I will I will guide you in deep dive in how to do the research in Kosovo. I would like to tell you a bit about my professional background. Since 2014, my professional interest turned into monitoring and evaluation, and I used to work as M&E team lead in USAID-funded projects in Ukraine. I have experience of work with Tatiana and Inna. We did research and some surveys together. So, like, as M&E professional, I was one of the persons who commissioned the researchers, analysis, etc. And I still now continue working as M&E professional, as independent consultant and independent evaluator. But today I would like to share with you my experience of very short period of time work in Kosovo, but very interesting, and I would say excited from the researcher point of view. I'm not pure 100% researcher, but I'm one of the persons who actually commission such things and involved in design and discussing with the contractors, interviewers, the specifics of such things. So during April, July last year, I was in Kosovo and worked as project manager in one of the international organizations present there. And one of our tasks was to conduct conflict analysis. But the specifics of this analysis was to look at the situation as it is now in Kosovo and not exploring the root causes of so-called conflict, which happened before. And now you will understand why. Again, I will not walk you through the whole history of relations of Kosovo with other countries in Balkans and wider. as it's really should be a separate lecture and not probably one. But the most traumatic, recent most traumatic events happened in 1998 and 1999, when we know these events as Kosovo War, which also not always called as a war by international society, either conflict or crisis. And this war is really still resonating in Kosovo society, especially between among Kosovo Albanians. Like, I give you my personal example. When I arrived to Kosovo, and it was like right after the Kosovo Independence Day celebration, they knew that I'm from Ukraine, and they told me their own stories from their childhood, my most younger ages, how they experienced that they had to flee Kosovo, spend time somewhere abroad, like one of them experienced bombing, shelling, and all these events still alive in their memories and hearts. Still, like more than 1,500 people missing. No one knows what happened to them. And families of these people are really suffering. So there are some projects which aim to support them psychologically and helping them to rework this trauma. As you see from the numbers on this slide, really many Albanians were killed or missing, and majority of them really civilians, and that's also affected Serbs and Roma, Bosniak and Montenegrins, and other ethnicities. But it's this war is really something living in Kosovo society, and later you will understand also why. So in February 2008, Kosovo declared its independence. Now it's really recognized by many countries in the world, but still not all of them recognize Kosovo as independent country, independent state. And most important, that Serbia, which have some interest in Kosovo areas, does not recognize independence of Kosovo. And these uncertain relations and creates high level of uncertainty, lots of instability, let's say, to some extent, and that's why it's really hard to really distinguish what happened in the past from what happening now, especially when we explore the other reasons for conflicts in the society. It's worth to mention that Albanian and Serbian are equally official languages in Kosovo, so that's not the issue to speak these two languages. In contrary, as in Ukrainian, in Ukraine only one official language, Ukrainian. There are municipalities, and actually there are 10 of 38, which are Serbs majority communities. That means that they have inhabited by Serbs mainly. There are representative of other ethnicities, but I believe either none or really few Albanians. And that's also cause that in Kosovo, and it may sound ridiculous, but there are two parallel administrative systems, especially they are present in Serb majority communities, like schools of two systems. Serbs children go to the schools with the Serbian curricula. Albanians attend classes in Kosovo curriculum schools. It can be two mayors, and sometimes it can be one person who serves Serbian system and Kosovo system. There are social benefits, social security, and other administrative institutions also, like existing in parallel. And also it also brings some uncertainty and the instability into overall existence, I would say, and development of the Kosovo as a country. This unresolved conflict between Serbia and Kosovo, because Serbia still have some interest in the areas, if not the entire Kosovo, but some parts for sure, maintains ground for hostility and clashes between Serbs and Albanians. But and it goes in the way, like really, even what can seem to be really minor event like policeman arrest a criminal, this can turn into tensions and clashes between Serbs and Albanians, like it happened last May when Kosovo police arrested the Serbian criminal, and that's turned into the way that there were some protests, some use of weapons in some communities, and as a result, it turned into the that administrative institutions, schools were closed or went for vacations earlier than it's planned. People couldn't go outside more freely because they cannot be sure that nothing will happen on the streets. Still, there are cultural and religious differences between Albanians and Serbs. Serbs are Orthodox Christians, Albanians are Muslims. That's all like may not be so obvious, but still something in the air always when you're present in Kosovo, especially when you're somewhere close to the areas where Serbs majority communities. We did the conflict analysis, and one of the part of this conflict analysis was public survey. So I will mention some numbers from this survey we did, and like two statements from which you can see on the slides. They are from this survey. So Serbs feel less comfortable being present, like for a short period of time, for longer period of time in Albanian majority communities, and they try to avoid such occasions, not because ordinary Albanians will attack them, will say something against, but what I was told by one of my colleagues, we can never be sure who is watching us and what they have in their minds. That can be happen that someone with radical views will be next to any person, and then it will lead to some unpleasant events and consequences. In survey we did, and I would like to mention that it's not the Kosovo-wide survey. We conducted this survey in two municipalities, Pristina, where the capital is located, and Mitrovica, and you will understand later why. 56% of respondents, majority of them Albanians, expressed their opinion that Serbs are seen as less desired members of the communities. Despite the readiness to be open, cooperate, and interact, still there is some tensions fueled by events happening in Kosovo now, and by propaganda from both sides, Serbia and Kosovo, in media and in communities. Language, as I mentioned, that's not the issue, and actually as a foreigner, as the representative of international organization, I consulted with the management of this organization and with the colleagues, which actually my team comprised from both Albanians and Serbs and even Bosniak. It wasn't an issue to choose which language to use, because by default, two languages should be used, and Serbs should be approached in Serbian, and Albanians should be approached in Albanians. it would be even hard to speak with Serbs in Albanian because not so many actually speak Albanian. In research made by Center for Social Initiatives in cooperation with the International Organization for Migration in 2019, nearly 5% Serbs speak Albanian. In our survey, we found out that 24% speak Albanian, and that's probably these are Serbs who speak Albanian, got their primarily and secondary education during the former Yugoslavia time, Yugoslav times, when they studied both languages in the schools. The same about Albanians. Albanians in their 40s, 50s, who went to school in Yugoslavia time, they speak both languages, and they feel free to speak the languages. And actually, when interviewing Serbs, we did this by our smaller team, and these interviews and focus group discussions were conducted either by Serbs or people who speak Serbian. One of them was and is actually Albanian, one of them is Bosniak. But when we did the wider survey, our contractor ensured that both ethnicities were present within the enumerators team and also as field coordinators. I hope you can see that's about the security. So I will explain about the security. There is no military actions now in Kosovo that happened and ended in 1999 with the tragic consequences, but no wide military action as now present in Ukraine. But when some clashes and tensions caused and they are fueled by the Serbian criminals, it's not recommended for Albanians to visit Serb majority communities for safety reasons. Avoid mass gatherings like protests and other groups. Again, firstly, not to be affected by these groups and interaction between radical groups and police, but also it's really uncomfortable, I would say, in my opinion, and unsafe, as I was told by my colleagues, to go outside without really urgent reason, not just to be captured by the radical group without asking if they are pro-Serbian or pro-Kosovo. And especially these things are relevant and live in municipality of Mitrovica. I lived and worked in Mitrovica, and you can see on the screen on this slide that Mitrovica is divided by Ibar River, and actually it's a, let's say, geographical and administrative border between Mitrovica South, which is fully under control of Kosovo government, and North Mitrovica, which populated mainly by Serbs, and which has these two systems, Serbian and Kosovo system. And in the North Mitrovica, there are, I think, 4 municipalities, and let's say inhabited by Serbs. So that's considered as a Serb part of Kosovo. So, and I was even told that we never know when we go from the South Mitrovica to North, for example, for a walk by the bridge, who is watching and what they are doing and how they use this information. So it's still secure. There is police and Kosovo forces observing and ensuring security. but some clashes can happen, and this actually can stop all normal operations like schools and administrative institutions, some organizations. And if we speak about the survey and research, so interviewers cannot visit these municipalities and communities. So if we planned face-to-face interviews, we had to either wait until the situation became more calm, or shift to face-to-face to the phone interviews. And actually, we were lucky; it didn't last too long. So by the time we issued the final version of the questionnaire for the survey, situation became calm, and the contractor could conduct face-to-face interviews in all communities where we planned. What Ina told in the beginning of this meeting today, there is a key issue with how we use the term and word conflict. For Ukraine, it's really live now and sensitive. In Kosovo, I would say it's not maybe too sensitive, but it influences how people understand questions which we ask them. So I would say that we spent a couple of weeks trying to find proper wording for focus group discussions guys, for interview guys, and for survey questionnaire, how to ask people about the root causes of conflict in modern Kosovo nowadays, and without referring to the events in 98, 99. So in an ordinary conversation, when you mention conflict, people will start talking about the war. And Albanians, they call the Kosovo war a war, but at the same time, they know that international society, organizations in Serbia use conflict or crisis or any other term, but not war. So we had some discussion, dispute. We didn't find best solution for this, but we try to build our questionnaires and guides in the way to guide people and focus on situation and events which happening now for their lives now, and find out the different reasons why people of different ethnicities, without highlighting Albanians, relations between Albanians and Serbs, can have some tensions, disputes, conflicts. In survey, we use a couple of questions where we use the word violence, tensions, and conflicts. These were closed multiple answer questions where we put information as options. We put some things related to the current political situations, current dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo, unemployment, economic development, some differences in culture, religion, and so on and so on. So still, we got some picture on this, but it was really, I would say, challenging even for people who working, for internationals who working in Kosovo like 20+ years to find the proper term to make sure that we don't talk about the Kosovo war. Speaking about the questions about politics and identity and citizenship, that's not really too sensitive not to ask them at all, but we also had to find a way how to formulate these questions. Moreover, it wasn't our task to explore the opinions about the political parties, political processes. We need to understand the overall picture, and if people consider trends in politics as one of the reasons for the conflicts between different groups and society. So, and here you can see that we ask about the Kosovo status because it's still not 100% determined and accepted by different countries. So like you can see that in Serbs and Albanians, both groups agree that this ongoing dialogue uncertainty can be one of the reasons. And also dialogue itself, which managed and facilitated by Brussels, is one of the reasons which bring dispute into society. We also asked several, not several, but actually maybe one or two questions about identity and citizenship. But here I recall how we approach this in Ukrainian, in surveying Ukrainian. In Ukraine, we ask if only Ukrainian can hold the Ukraine citizenship. In Kosovo, we decided not to ask such question. And we went in the way that any person with any ethnicity, regardless religion, culture, language, etc., can hold Kosovo citizenship. And about participation in joint events, here I can tell only about the events which are organized and held within the country. In our survey, we found out that both groups, Albanian and Serbs, can be in one group with each other and feel comfortable to interact. But in practice, it's not so many cases and occasions when they come together voluntarily and interact. So the project where I used to work, actually one of the goals was to bring young Serbs and young Albanians together to facilitate cohesion between different groups through the common interests. But still, as the people, especially young people, they don't speak these languages. The only language for communication is English. All other events organized by international organizations can bring together Albanians and Serbs. I wasn't present at such, but if they happen, I believe they organize either translation or all of them use the English, which also I was told is one of the official languages, but I didn't find that that it's really determined by the Kosovo law that English is official language. But all official institutions, all state institutions use 3 languages and issue documents in 3 languages. That's I think that's all from my side. I hope you get the overall picture about what's going on in Kosovo. I'm not like the only one and a right opinion about that. That's only a very small experience of myself from what I had to do and what I faced. So I will be happy to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Iryna. Thank you. And yeah, I can definitely see a lot of valuable insights that you emphasized in your presentation from, well, relatively not so long experience of conducting this research in Kosovo, but still quite valuable for the current Ukrainian context. Do we have any immediate questions to Iryna? If yes, please raise up your hand. If you need a bit more time to phrase the question. If we have a question from Vera, please.
Thank you so much. Fascinating presentation, fascinating work. I have actually 2 questions in a way. One relates to your point about joint events, and you mentioned that you were, apart from the surveys and the interviews, you were also conducting focus groups.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether in this context you attempted bringing both Kosovo Serbs and Kosovo Albanians together, or whether those focus groups were held separately. And another question that I have, is related to your own positionality as a non-Kosovar researcher, but also generally your positionality as a, I mean, in Kosovo you would be perceived, my assumption would be, as an international researcher, right? As a representative in a way of an international community, whatever that might entail. But you're also a Ukrainian female scholar, and that positionality does affect your role as a researcher, right? So I was wondering, I mean, that is less considered to be important in quantitative surveys, but certainly is important for collecting data through interviews and focus groups. So I was wondering how that played out in your own research.
Thank you, Vera, for your questions regarding the focus group discussions. Well, again, I did rely on opinion of my colleagues. They are not researchers; they are ordinary project coordinators and assistants, but they know the context well and understand the local society. So we didn't try to bring representative of both ethnicities into one focus group discussions, not only to avoid, you know, the kind of conflicts, local, I mean, tensions during the conversation, but also to make them more open to speak. And again, it's also the language issue. And I would say that probably it was good on our side that we invited invited representatives of NGOs for focus group discussions. So the team knows well who is representing whom. There's like more like personal context to some extent, not all of them, of course, but some. And to make them more comfortable, we invited them to the office, to our office, and the team I run, they spoke with them in with the Serbs in Serbian and with Albanians in Albanian. So in this survey, I wouldn't even wouldn't question which language we need to use. I accepted that by default. About the second questions, I'm not really sure that I got the idea what you want to hear. Can you rephrase it, please?
The second question was about your own positionality as a researcher in relation to your identity, gender-related identity, ethnic or country of origin-related identity, and how that affected your research in Kosovo.
Well, yeah, that was really, I would say, stressful because I arrived to Kosovo and jumped into a really new role in new country with an unknown context for me, and with a project which was already like several months behind the schedule. So, of course, I catch myself that I was comparing Ukraine with Kosovo, Ukrainians, with my team, their attitude and so on. But I remember that they have the specifics. I have a really good supervisor. She is running this organization more than 20 years in Kosovo. She knows the context and the specifics well. So I got we discussed what to pay attention for, how to do this. In some cases, the team was not sure. So as she's more experienced, but still she's not the local one. She's American, but she's living in this country like quite long and running this organization. So I try to like put my identity somewhere a part of that and focus on interests and follow what people talking around, so how they perceive, and also taking into account the situation, because we started this survey right with the beginning of these clashes in northern Mitrovica. So it was challenging, but still, and we hired the quite experienced local company who ran this survey. Also, they was checking the wording, especially translated into Albanian and Serbian. So I think I believe I did myself all to follow this principle, do no harm. Thank you.
And I see that Ina also has a question, so please.
Iryna,
So
thank you.
presenters have the discussions among themselves.
Yes, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Maybe you have the data or you have some subjectives like opinions who are more intolerant, Kosovars or Serbians, maybe more aggressive or radical, and why?
Actually, unfortunately, we didn't get this data from our contractor while I was asking them. So, but I can conclude that still in the sample majority were Albanians. So this 56%, I think the huge amount, number of people, number of respondents who are, let's say, less tolerant to Serbs, Albanians. More tolerant are Roma, Ashkali, Egyptians, and other ethnicities. Why? My assumption and my personal opinion, it's not represent the opinion of organization I used to work for, that despite no official, no ongoing conflict, it's still fueled after the war by both sides. There is a lot of propaganda in local media, and we didn't do a specific research on media consumption as we did in Ukraine together with you, but both Serbs and Albanians agreed there's a lot of propaganda, and also from the conversation with my team, the examples they gave me, I concluded that's really still lots of hate on the kind of personal level between Albanian and Serbs, and the roots are in the war and that happened in late 90s. So, and both politicians on both sides, Serbia and Kosovo, they use this for manipulation and like in a hidden way, fueling and warming up these tensions between people. That's my personal opinion.
I have maybe one question to Iryna and like a general comment on all three presentations, if there are no other immediate questions. So my question with regard to the possibility of conducting phone surveys, from what Ina was presenting, yes, this issue with how we ask this language question, the first question that might be the first step to create this willingness to participate in the survey. Yes, for Ukrainian context is extremely sensitive now. And from maybe your talks with colleagues, with subcontractor, how they deal with it in Kosovo, since if they do the phone surveys, if they do that in the same way as we do in Ukraine with the random generating of the phone number, they also don't know what language the respondent speaks in the very first step. Maybe you have an idea of how they deal with this issue and how, because it's not easy way to solve it. Yes, what language is used in this intro if we don't know who the respondent is?
It's a really good question. I did explore that. Actually, I didn't ask a question myself. Like I was aiming to do the face-to-face interview, so like I didn't think about that. it would be good to know, really. Also, I think maybe it's, somehow they knows locations, and depending on locations, it's really easy to identify who will answer.
Like higher
there is-
probability that using some language, one of them would be more fit into the context. Okay, I got your point. Okay.
And I also again assume that's my assumption. Probably if they hear that, and they will start conversation in Albanian, they will hear that person speaks Serbian, they will shift. But I'm not sure that. Well, it's a really good question. If they're doing phone survey, how need they organize? So that's the team, the enumerators team should be bilingual by default if they're doing the phone survey. Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the methodological and both, I would say, ethical question, but yeah, more methodological on how we do this intro in the phone surveys as well as in the face-to-face surveys if we don't know the person, the ethnic background, or yeah, the language, speaking skills or reading skills, or yeah, understanding the certain language. And the general, I would say, the observation that I think is relevant to all three presentations, and I would say it's my concluding remark before maybe anyone would like to also add anything to our workshop. So the concluding and kind of the transitioning remark maybe to the next event, if it will happen, is that what in each presentation was present, was there, but not specifically addressing this, is conducting the research on internally displaced people and how to do this kind of studies, how to do this kind of surveys, because we have quite an extensive experience of conducting these studies in Ukraine since 2014. And how to do this, how these studies are being done in Central Asian countries, how they are being done in the Balkan countries, and also, of course, what are the methodological similarities of how we address this specific target group, this specific audience, these respondents, because of course there could be additional sensitivities, additional challenges of conducting the data collection, of interacting with this target audience. And yeah, I would invite anyone who has any kind of the thoughts, remarks on that to maybe add if there are any additional remarks, maybe from the presenters also. Okay, Inna, please. Yes.
So now, as I have said, that when you survey IDPs, it's a must to have the questionnaire in 2 languages. And also, if in before full-scale war in Ukraine, there were about 1% of IDPs, now there are unfortunately 16% of IDPs. And what was so it's rather easy to reach them via phone because before the full-scale war, we have collected the databases of the IDPs and so on. And what have changed? First of all, it's a good result that IDPs less often talk about discrimination than before the full-scale war. This is probably, first of all, it is because increasing empathy in Ukrainian society, and also because there are higher share of IDPs. And so more people know about them about their problems. They are more visible, and so on. And the second like difference of this flow of IDPs is that unlike IDPs before, then they cannot return to their home in most cases. So if like previously IDPs thought that maybe they will leave or they will return, now most IDPs have to either stay or move to other settlements or abroad, but they cannot return home.
Thank you, Ina. And Vera, also, you have a comment?
I do not actually have a comment on IDP research, although when you started talking about that, I immediately thought also about the research that has been done here in Austria, where I'm based, on basically displaced persons coming from Ukraine and residing in Austria, and maybe some insights from that research could be also taken up and looked into. But the question that I have was actually related, or it's a follow-up question of what Tatiana asked to Iryna. I wanted to ask the same question to Ina for the intro, basically. So once you contact people, whether online or via phone or for in-person interviews, whether you by default use Ukrainian to open up, basically, to just open the process of interviewing, or how do you deal with that?
We by default use Ukrainian, but if we hear that person is talking in Russian, the interviewer switch to Russian. And in the online surveys, we usually have the text in both languages. But interesting, in online survey, we have asked people whether they don't mind to have only Ukrainian questionnaire. And again, about 10% said that it is not good for them, while 90% said that it's okay.
Yeah, and we will see if the situation will change anyhow in any direction. So this is something that the team is monitoring and is paying attention to. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions to the presenters or the comments to the workshop in general, I would like to thank to ZOiS and to the presenters who shared their experiences with us in this almost 2 hours, and to all those who participated as the audience and also contributed to the discussion with questions and comments. And see you at any other events, and good luck and inspiration in all your research and professional activities. And and let's have a silent, calm day, as we usually now say in Ukraine.
Thank you very much for the great moderation.
Thank you. And we stop the recording and we stop the meeting.